What was your takeaway from media days?
Oklahoma is very disinterested in talking to all of us. Why
would that be?
They don't want to talk to us at all. LSU, I've seen LSU 5-6 times now, so like they're always personable. But Oklahoma just seemed like they didn't want to be here, and honestly, like that could be a byproduct of them taking the Jalen Hurts mindset. It's almost like that Oklahoma has been Sabanized without actually having Nick Saban on that team. So because you basically have a clone of Nick Saban at the quarterback spot. So that was my biggest takeaway, and the size. And I know, like, you come to these games and you see teams from different parts of the country, and most of the time I'm in the SEC.
Size of LSU versus size of Oklahoma.
It's like looking at varsity versus JV.
Really?
Yeah, with the exception of a few guys like Neville Gallimore and some of those guys. I mean, LSU looks like an NFL team compared to Oklahoma.
The question is, does it fundamentally change what LSU wants to do if he can't play?
Not necessarily, because they still want to pass to set up the run. They're not going to keep a running back in to block all that much because LSU doesn't really do that as much as they have in years past. It does change a little bit about how they operate. I think more specifically with Thaddeus Moss, because Joe Burrow has said consistently as the season has gone on that Clyde Edwards-Helaire is the MVP of the team because he provides that safety valve. If these long, slow developing routes, if he's under pressure, he knows Clyde's going to be where Clyde's supposed to be. Can you trust Davis Price or any of the other guys to do that? And the answer is probably no, because they haven't done it. But you do know that Thaddeus Moss is an extremely gifted and multidimensional talent. He can stress you up the seam at tight end, but we've seen at times him be the guy that sort of leaks out in the flat and becomes that safety valve. So I think it does change a little bit about what they do, but in reality, is it going to make a huge difference? I don't think so, because I think Clyde's best work and the most important things that he has done are close games out, specifically the Alabama game. I mean, you've stood next to him. I've stood next to him. I'm 6 feet tall. They lift him at 5'10". He ain't 5'10". He's 5'7", 5'8". And that might be generous.
He is a fire plug.
But he hits you hard. And the fact that he has that kind of ability and that kind of impact and can take over a game like that, that's what he does best, and that's what that team needs in those spots. We don't know if Davis Price or John Emery or those guys can do that.
The weekend's full of surprises, from big upsets to rivalries. On the Finebaum show, Paul's on a roll. If he don't get the best of me, call Paul. He'll make sense of it all. Yeah, we'll call Paul.
And welcome back to my hometown of Atlanta, Georgia. There's the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. There's inside the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. 4 o'clock tomorrow. Number 1 LSU versus Oklahoma. They're the two head coaches right there, Lincoln Riley and Coach Ed Orgeron. We are in the College Football Hall of Fame today. If you haven't been here, folks, you need to go if you care about college football. Happy to be joined by my man Marty Smith. These are your people.
That's my legion right there.
These are your people right here.
14
hey, folks,
of them.
We're going to do something fun here. We're going to take your calls at 855-242-7285 for Marty Smith. And let's start with the calls right now. And let's go to William from Louisiana. William, you're on with Marty Smith.
Hey, Marty, how you doing, man? Good show. I watch you and McGee. Y'all are very, very funny. I want to give a little shout-out to my boy Tommy, because I know he's a LSU guy. Glad that we got a little bit of LSU slant on that. I want to address the fake B-Ham Red fans who I respect Jalen. I respect Oklahoma. Just really tired, really sick and tired of hearing about, LSU's season, how we didn't deserve it, how we don't, begin to be there, how in the world that, that way, I can't get over that they cannot get past that they got beat this year. 8 years, okay? 8 years as LSU fans, we dealt with this, okay? We dealt with it, we handled it, we went on ahead, we done what we had to do. Now, the one year that we do win with a prolific offense from from Sean Payton's offense at the Saints, by the way, 28-3. Shout out to the dome, the fake dome over there. We just want to sit there and just say, I've never called this show like that. I'm glad my man's on there. Marty, I love your show. I love my other boys on TOL. Watch all the time, both shows. Great, wonderful program, and go Tigers. Or my coaches speak, go Tigers.
Go Tigers. All right, Will, we appreciate you calling. Let's go to Louisiana Dan. Louisiana Dan, you're on with Marty Smith.
Hey, Tony. Hey, Marty.
What's going on, Dan? What you got?
Oh, man, I wanted to talk to you. Marty, I don't know if you'll get a chance, but if you do, please tell Jalen it hurts when you scramble against LSU.
Oh, he got jokes. I will do that.
Okay. I appreciate it.
All right, Dan.
All right, we'll talk to y'all later.
All right, Dan, we appreciate you calling. Let's go to Hank.
Enjoy.
Let's go to Hank in South Carolina. Hank, you're on with Marty Smith.
Hey, how you doing? Tony, doing a great job up there, bud.
Well, thank you.
Hey, I want to know about Cooley, James Coley. I'm a little worried that Kirby seems to be dead strong on keeping him around. In my opinion, he doesn't seem to be developing quarterbacks. I mean, we let Fields get out of there, and it seems like he has made Fromm regress into, bad habits. I don't know what Kirby's thinking. I mean, I do believe in Kirby and want him to stay, but I just believe he needs to relinquish some of his control over the offense and get him somebody young in there. I thought Kendall Browse would have been a good thing, like Pittman did. I'm just wondering what your opinion on Kirby needing to get him a coordinator in there and turn the offense over to them.
All right, well, Hank, we appreciate you calling. Marty, this is something that's changing the SEC. I mean, Nick Saban goes to the more wide open, hires Lane Kiffin, more wide open. Obviously, we talked about what Coach O did at LSU. I think we're getting to the point now, most of the team, you're going to have to make this change. I don't know that you can keep scoring 24, 27 points a game and think that you're going to win no matter how good your defense is. And I live here. I hear from the Georgia people all the time.
Coach O calls it basketball on grass now.
Yep.
And I agree with that. I mean, everything's a track meet. And I will say that the offense at Georgia this season did seem to regress.
Yeah.
It did. It did not look as precise. They still had elite players, but I'm not in any way, shape, or form going to give Coley a pass, but I will say this, and this also goes for Jake Fromm. Lawrence Cager was his best target.
No doubt.
Lawrence Cager was beat up all year long. That kid was a warrior to be on the field when he was there, okay? Now, if you cannot pass it, obviously it makes running it a little bit more difficult. Some people have been very critical of that offensive line, which most of us at the beginning of the season, along with Oregon, felt like was the best in the country. Did they go out and dominate defensive lines? It's a subjective question. But they certainly were not dynamic very often from my perspective, and I saw them play, I saw them play a few times.
Right. Well, and here's the thing is from the South Carolina game on for Georgia, the only time that Jake Fromm looked like he was comfortable is when Cager was on the field.
Right.
He was on the field for the Florida game.
Right.
Jake had his best game of the year, 20 of 30. Cager had a big game, and it was clear that that was his security blanket. And the other guys, while talented, just weren't able to get the separation on quality defensive backs.
By the way, you can't put Justin Fields transferring on James Coley. Just put that out the window here. Justin Fields transferred because Jake Fromm is a very good football player.
Yep.
Did he have the type of year all of us were expecting? No. But he's a very good football player, a tremendous leader. He started 74,000 games now at Georgia. And he also, just for the record, Eason got injured, but sent Jacob Eason to Washington. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of dynamics involved in it. It's not any one thing, but if they, Coley has to open that playbook up some.
Yep.
Okay.
Right. And really, I'm sure they're thinking they've got running backs, they'll have running backs, and these wide receivers will grow up, and they went out and signed a bunch more during the signing period.
Had to.
So that to me, the Jake Fromm thing is really interesting to me because he hasn't said yet whether or not he is coming back next year. To me, that's going to be an interesting decision.
Very interesting decision because, I mean, you kind of have to look at. I don't really pay a whole lot of attention to. I don't talk to a whole lot of NFL GMs every single day, so I don't know where they kind of had him entering the season. But I know he's elite. Yep. I mean, he is. And so we'll see where all that shakes out and what his decision is. But I think he could raise his stock. I mean, look, Joe Burrow's going to go really high. Tua's still going to go really high. There's some really good players in this draft. And then next year you got Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields and those guys. So, I don't know. Difficult.
We will see. All right, let's take a call from Turner. Turner, you are on with Marty Smith.
Hey, Marty, how you doing?
Phenomenal, Turner. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Just want to start and say roll tide, Marty. But I just want to talk to you about on your thoughts if you think Tua is going to be coming back next year.
Oh, I have no idea. I have no idea. I've not talked to him about that. I don't know. I don't know where his mind is. I'm sure as we progress on down the line here, as we get closer to the draft, and he starts to get some feedback from where his draft position will be. I know he said to Kirk Herbstreit, Herbie sat him down a couple weeks back, and he said to Herbie, if I'm top 15, that's going to be hard to say no. So
right.
We'll see kind of where those projections are for him, but I just hate it for him that this happened because he's a generational talent. His accuracy is just unbelievable. His leadership, he's grown so much in terms of commanding a Nick Saban football team. And so I just hate that he's been injured so much.
Right.
Oh, he's different for sure.
I just don't know if we've seen anybody in this conference with that kind of arm talent who can throw the deep ball that consistently.
It's just unbelievable. And when you look at the talent that he had on the perimeter, it's just an embarrassment of riches. And with his skill set coupled with Waddle and Judy and Smith and all those guys, it's just very difficult to stop. And I don't know what he's going to do yet, but whatever he's going to do, he's going to be wildly successful. Because I tell you one thing about Tua that I admire so much, and I told him this myself. His example as a man with the way that he reacts to adversity and how his faith drives everything and how every single part of his life he sees through that prism with such grace is something we can all learn from. And he's a generational football talent, but he's a phenomenal man. And his whole family's great.
I agree with that.
Indeed.
That's right.
All right,
well,
Brams,
thank you for talking to me, Marty. I appreciate you, and roll tide,
Appreciate the call, brother. Happy New Year.
Yes, sir.
All right, Brams, we have time for one more call. Linda. How
is it Cornbread Linda?
Yeah, this is Cornbread Linda. No, you
Cornbread Linda.
Sweet Kate.
I missed you, girl. What's up?
I miss you
Linda
too.
from Argo.
Happy New Year. Merry Christmas. All that
Yes,
good
ma'am.
stuff.
You too. I hope you had a good one.
I am so excited to talk. I talked to Tony yesterday. Well, Sweet Tea. You know I'm going to call him Sweet Tea. And yesterday, and now I get to talk to Tony, Sweet Tea, and my Cornbread.
Oh, Cornbread Maxwell.
Day.
I love it.
I love it. So how's Puddin' doing?
Me and Puddin' will be back on January 18th, so you can call us every Saturday morning.
I will be calling in.
Yes, ma'am. We look forward to it.
Bright and early. Central time.
I think he's doing great.
Well, good. I hope. What's his wife's name? Well, I'll be
Erica.
Erica. Yeah, I hope Erica and Laney's doing good, and your little big girl.
You can say hi to Laney. I think she might be watching right now.
Really?
I think so.
Well, hey, Erica and Laney and everyone. Little Puddin' and little Cornbread.
When Linda calls, it's like a family reunion, Tony. It's awesome.
How's your mama and them? That's right.
Yeah, how's mama
and them?
Yeah, how's your mom and them? Listen, I thank you, Cornbread, for saying all those things about Tua Tagovailoa. Oh, my goodness. That was just a great representation of Tua, and you know how much I appreciate that being an Alabama fan. But let's get to football. Alabama's going to beat Michigan. That's what Tony was telling me yesterday. I really believe Alabama's going to beat Michigan. And here's one for you. I think LSU is going to win it all.
You think, all right, so you're calling LSU before the playoff games, Linda. All right, I like it.
Yeah.
Well,
I think they're going to win it all. That's really the way I feel. So, and Alabama's going to beat Michigan, Roll Tide, all that good stuff. Just go Dogs for sweet tea. And
thank you for calling us, Linda.
Hey, Linda,
we love you, girl.
We love you. We got to go. Okay, we got to take a break. Partner, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you for your kindness always, Tony.
Good to see you. All right, we're going to take a break. We come back. We're here to take your calls at 855-24.
Ain't nothing better than Grandma's home cooking. Just ask Nana G's grandbabies.
You want those 5 or 10?
Her grandson wanted to spread the love, so he started rolling down the streets of Atlanta. Bacon-infused Belgian waffles with 2 piping hot chicken tenders that have been soaking for 48 hours in Nana G's top-secret buttermilk batter. Man, would you look at that. Sweet and savory Southern goodness.
All right, welcome back to Atlanta, Georgia. We are at the College Football Hall of Fame. If you haven't been here, folks, you need to get here. And tomorrow, 4 o'clock, we're going to have the College Football Hall of Fame at the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. All right, now we have everybody back. Tony Barnhart sitting in for Paul Finebaum. We're here to take your calls until 7 o'clock at 855-242-7285. I know. Let's go to some calls right now. Let's go to Matt in Louisiana. Hello, Matt. It's Tony Barnhart.
Hey, what's going on, guys? I got a quick comment real quick. I had a caller that called in earlier and was saying that LSU was overlooking Oklahoma. Do they not forget that Coach O overlooks nobody?
He doesn't. I have heard nobody say that LSU's overlooking Oklahoma. I think they understand how hard they had to work to get here. They understand the dynamic offense that is Oklahoma, and I don't think that's happening at all.
Yeah, it was just one of them Bama fans. He kind of made the comment, but I guarantee you, Coach O's got them ready because. I mean, they played, 3 or 4 playoff contenders, this season, and that being, Bama being one of them, and Coach O ain't going to overlook nobody. I don't care if it's, BYU again.
Nope. You're right, Matt. That's not going to happen. Listen, we appreciate you calling. Let's go to Mike in Des Moines, Iowa. Hello, Mike. What's the weather in Des Moines today?
Hey, you know what? It's right now the high is around 44. It's not as cold. It was 60 on Christmas Day, brother. I was out in the grilling on the grill just like I did growing up in the South. So, interesting weather. Listen, I grew up an LSU fan. Hey, Marty, how are you today as well?
Well, Marty was with us. Unfortunately, he had to go do another commitment, but we had a blast with Marty.
All right. So, Tony, I grew up an LSU fan. I heard you on the radio in Nashville, though, with Joe and Willie and all those guys. That was where I moved as an adult. I lived there for several years. And memory serves, you had a Saturday morning show on a station in Nashville for a while, too.
Well, thank you. I do a show with Doug Matthews, former Tennessee assistant coach.
I remember
we have a lot of fun.
Guy. Yeah, a couple things on calls from earlier. I've been listening while I've been on hold. And Adrian Peterson started at Oklahoma the year after the BCS championship game.
The 04 season. That's right.
Yeah, and the other thing is Michael Divinity left the week of the Alabama game, came back, had been practicing with the team, and may still be as far as I heard last. But Coach O said that if he was able to play, he would not be cleared until the national championship game if they were to make it. So it would be after January.
You know what? To tell you the truth, I don't expect. Yeah, I don't expect Clyde Edwards-Helaire to play. I mean,
No,
I know they're trying.
I'm talking about I'm talking about Divinity. Michael Divinity.
Oh, Divinity. Okay, that's right.
Yeah,
A caller asked about Michael Divinity.
He came back and practiced with the team last time I saw, but the word was if he were cleared to play, it wouldn't be until January. So it would not be. So if he's back on that team, he could possibly play in January, but that decision had not been made, and that's the last I heard on that. But if you remember, there was a guy asking you about that earlier in the call. So that's the last that had been in print about the Divinity situation.
Well, thanks for passing that along. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Also, Oklahoma, I also cannot disagree anymore. The guy that called earlier that said that Alabama fans, every once in a while you just got to bite the pill. We had to in Baton Rouge for years. That's a true story. Oklahoma has a talented receiver. We've talked about him over and over. Is he really that much better than Chase or what Jefferson's allowed to do in open field as well? LSU's got a lot of threats too, right? Thad Moss has been good. They got 3 quality receivers in Marshall. And then you may see some of those running backs get numbers, but look for guys like a Derek Dillon or a Ricey McMath or something running some like little short escape routes and maybe being able to pick up some guys and maybe catching that ball short and being able to turn that into some plays, because those guys have made some plays for LSU over the years. They just got surpassed by some really talented wide receivers who Oklahoma's going to focus on. So it'll be fascinating to see how that turns out. In the end, I think that tomorrow at least, I think LSU's got more threats, and I think Jalen Hurts will make more mistakes than Joe Burrow. So I'll pick the Tigers tomorrow.
All right, Mike, I appreciate you calling. Let's go to Paul in Louisiana. Paul, this is Tony Barnhart.
Hey, Tony, how you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you.
I was just wondering, what y'all's feelings on, how do y'all feel about Miles Brennan stepping in next Miles Brennan stepping in next year at quarterback? Y'all think he'll be anything near as good as Joe Burrow, or do you think he has the talent?
Yeah, it's going to be hard to compare anybody to Joe Burrow, but the fact of the matter is Miles Brennan was a very highly recruited player. And almost won the job earlier in his career. I think he's got talent. Now we'll see if he's got all the other intangibles that Joe Burrow had. I tell you what, how would you like to be the guy who follows Joe Burrow? How hard is that going to be?
That's going to be a chore. But I think he has. If you'll notice, every time that anything happens at the game, he's always there. He's there with Joe Burrow always. He throws a touchdown, Miles Brennan's the first one there. Anything he does good, Miles is there for him.
Well, I promise you this, Miles Brennan is saying, you know what? This guy, after this year is gone, I need to stay close to this guy and figure out how he does it, and maybe some of what he's got will rub off on me next year if I can win this job. Okay. All right, Brams, we got any more callers? All right, we're going to take a break.
Here with Joe Burrow. And Joe, you've been on a whirlwind tour picking up so many awards. So I wanted to know kind of the moment you redialed in and got back to campus, refocused on the task at hand.
Right when I got on the plane after New York, I was ready to get back to work and get back to the film room and practice.
So on the plane, did you pull out film or did you start prep right away?
Took a nap. That was me locking back in. So I got back and went straight to the film room.
Of course, you pick up a Heisman, you go back and take a nap. It's perfect. So the film work and the preparation, you guys have been busy here. How have you been able to really be locked in and focused?
It hasn't been hard. This is a playoff game. We know the magnitude of the situation. We have a lot of mature guys on the team.
So guys who film study, quarterbacks, have learned how to be better at that. Tell me how you're preparing for Oklahoma's defense. They're improved.
Yeah, they're really fast. They pop on film. They have a really good coach that I know pretty well, and they're going to have a really good scheme for us, so we're going to have to be ready for it.
Your offense was rolling at the end of the season. You get this layoff. It's not too long, but how do you get that chemistry and that timing back with your wide receivers?
Yeah, you could see the rust at the beginning, last week, and we've knocked it off pretty quickly. It doesn't take that long, but we've had a couple really good practices here.
Okay, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is obviously a question mark with his injury. You guys throw to him a ton out of the backfield. I think he has 50 receptions this year. So how does that impact that kind of dump down game and that running back game?
Yeah, Clyde is one of our best players and best leaders. But I think he'll be able to play. I think he'll be just fine. You know, he's been in the training room. He's been running around at practice, so he's been looking good.
Okay, awesome. Anything that you have learned throughout this whole process about yourself? You know, you've been all over the news, everywhere. Like, what have you learned about yourself in the last couple of weeks?
It's a good question. I don't know. I think I'm just a ball player that likes to throw the ball around and be with the guys and have fun and play football.
Okay, I think I've learned that you're a really good three-point shooter. How did you go 10 for 12 in the three-point shootout?
You know, I had to knock off the shooting arm a little bit. You know, my guys didn't think I could play ball, but I'm a pretty decent basketball player too.
As if you needed any more credibility, how did that improve your credibility with your teammates?
They respected me a little bit more. Surprisingly, they really did.
So it wasn't the Heisman, it was the three-point shooting?
It was the three-point shooting, absolutely.
I love it. Thank you, Joe.
Yep, you got it.
All right. This is the Fan Fest here, boys and girls, here at the College Football Hall of Fame. One of the neat things of this whole building is kids can kick field goals and pass and have a blast. Folks, if you haven't been to the College Football Hall of Fame, you have got to come here if you care about college football. Everything is here. When I say everything is here, I really mean it, because you know who else is here besides your friend Tony Barnhart? Our friend Greg McElroy is here. How are you, my man?
What's happening, man? It's good to see you.
Good. It's always good to talk ball with you.
I think it's appropriate that Mr. College Football is sitting here in the College Football Hall of Fame.
Well, bless your heart. I appreciate that. Big picture, Greg, on this game. We know about the different storylines, but as you sit there and break down these two teams, let's start with the underdog. Is there a path for Oklahoma, and if there is a path, what is it?
Turnovers.
Yeah.
I think that's the ultimate neutralizer, and big plays. I know it sounds like coach speak, but those two things determine wins and losses more than anything else in college football because it's such a momentum game. And when you look at the momentum that can be seized with a turnover or a big play or a counterpoint, now what it can be created with a turnover or a big play, it's massive. And I look at just tail of the tape, starting 22 for both Oklahoma and LSU, and on paper, it shouldn't be close. It really shouldn't.
Right.
Now, granted, the ultimate neutralizer are mistakes. And if they make mistakes, the LSU Tigers, that is, and Oklahoma is able to run the ball consistently with Jalen Hurts, then that's their path to keeping this game competitive into the fourth quarter.
So Jalen Hurts, the narrative of this game goes, he's got to protect the football. He's had some issues protecting the football this year. So that's number one. But number two, he's got to keep the chains moving with his leg or with his arm, but you've got to cut back on Joe Burrow's possessions if you're going to have a chance to win this game.
I think that's a really interesting point because I've been thinking about that a little bit. When was the last time Oklahoma's offense was tasked with, hey, we got to squat on it, we got to hold the football, we got to keep the opposing offense off the field? Because usually it's the other way around. It's, hey, we got to keep the ball, we got to control the clock because we don't want the Oklahoma offense on the field. That's not the case in this particular game because if you look at the matchups that Oklahoma's going to have offensively, yes, they'll have some advantageous opportunities, and I think they'll have some opportunities to run the football. But Joe Burrow and company with that incredible skill set at wide receiver, curious about the impact of Clyde Edwards-Helaire possibly not being at 100%. I don't expect him to be. I expect his role to be very limited, and if anything, maybe be a decoy in the game, which is not necessarily the worst role that you can have, knowing that he's nursing a hamstring injury. But that matchup between LSU's offense and Oklahoma's defense is a very one-sided matchup. There's not a lot of matchups that I can see on the Oklahoma side against this LSU group that I feel like are advantageous.
Greg, as a quarterback, you watched Jalen Hurts play 3 years at Alabama. You saw him have incredible highs. Almost won the national championship as a freshman, SEC Player of the Year, loses his job in 2017 in this building down the road here, comes back, wins the SEC championship off the bench for Alabama at the same building down the road. When he goes to Oklahoma, what were your thoughts about how Lincoln Riley was going to use his skill set? He's not like the other guys. He's different. What did you think he was going to do, and what has Lincoln Riley actually done with him?
I think one thing that's been encouraging is how he hasn't completely deviated away from who Jalen Hurts really is. Jalen Hurts is an excellent runner. He's a power runner more specifically. And he is not going to be a super twitchy, like Kyler Murray. He's not going to be a super twitchy, create behind the line of scrimmage and throw the ball with remarkable accuracy down the field. He's improved in those areas, but that's not his bread and butter. His bread and butter is quarterback designed runs between the tackles and in scramble drill opportunities. He's not always going to look and keep his eyes downfield trying to distribute the football. He's looking to create lanes so he can gash the defense north and south. So I think Lincoln Riley's done a great job of subtly adapting to what Jalen Hurts is most comfortable doing. He did the same thing for Kyler Murray because Kyler Murray's skill set was different from that of Baker Mayfield. So I think they've reverted back a little bit more to Baker Mayfield, except not as much genuine drop back. It's more off scramble. It's more off movement. It's more off things that allow Jalen Hurts to use his athleticism more than kind of operating as a drop back passer.
Right. You played quarterback in this league. You won a national championship in the Southeastern Conference. Can you put into context what LSU has done with Joe Burrow? Because we saw Joe Burrow play a year ago. Okay,
right.
Okay. But then you put him in an offense that takes advantage of his skill sets. And if he gets 285 yards tomorrow, he'll have 5,000.
Yeah, it's amazing.
No player in the history of this conference has thrown for 5,000 yards.
I'll be the first one to tell you. We had them week 9 last year. I think if you were to ask Ed Ogeron too, he'd tell you, Joe is a good player, solid player. We had him week 9. I watched his first 8 games because I was interested in him, and I obviously cover the league closely and love watching quarterbacks, and I thought he was very average. I mean, throughout the course of the first 8 games last year, but something went down in the 7 overtime game against Texas A&M. It was as if he realized, hey, I got to do more. I can do more. I'm going to do more. And then you saw that kind of trickle into the bowl game. So he used that entire bowl season to really work on taking a little more ownership. And he played very well against UCF. And then, of course, the transition to this offense, it further proves that to get recruited at this level, you have to have really good skill. There's no denying that. Everyone that starts in Division I football can throw it. Everyone that starts in the Southeastern Conference can throw it. But there are certain things that come to the forefront when the big lights get bright. And the thing that I'll say, and even doing Joe Burrow games this year, when you watch him in practice, it's like, all right.
Okay.
Yeah, he's fine. Yeah, I mean, you watch him in a game, that's the best player in America. Why is that? And there's some intangible quality that some guys just have. And they just seem to get bigger and better and play better with more consistency the bigger the moment becomes. And that's been him. I think he's refined his craft quite a bit in the way he moves in the pocket, how he always keeps his feet underneath him, and he's always keeping his eyes downfield regardless of the traffic that's going on. As he's getting ready to get hit, he's still accurate with the football and being able to deliver to the open receiver. So I've been so impressed with how he's grown, and I've been so impressed with the confidence he's displayed throughout the course of the first 13 games.
Well, I wanted to ask you about a specific play, the game against Texas in Austin. I'm sitting there watching that game. It's a 3rd and long.
Yeah.
They got to have a big play.
Right.
He drops back, and he doesn't scramble. He just takes a slight little shift to find a gap. And then when he made that shift, the guy wasn't open. When he made the shift, just a couple of feet,
completely,
he threw it, and it's a touchdown.
Well, it's all about
you
time.
can't teach that.
You can't teach it, and it's about timing, and it's all about creating just a little bit more time in a throwing position to allow your receivers to uncover. And I thought that was a great example, but there were other throws in that game that led you to start to think, okay, this guy's something. I mean, because even the first game, okay, they played, but oh, wow, that was nice performance against a solid Group of 5 program, all good. Texas, we even thought to ourselves, Texas maybe not great on defense, a lot of young players, let's see how they handle it. But it was really the game against Alabama where I was most impressed because it was the timely running and the ability to just extend drives a little bit more on 3rd down when there's good coverage. He's able to make a guy miss and create another first down to keep the defense on the field on a 3rd and long. On 3rd and 10, there's the pressure overloaded on the right side. Dump it off, no problem. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, go make a play for me, Clyde. He makes a guy miss, 1st and 10. He did the little things so exceptionally well in the most critical moments. And I became immediately a believer in what his capabilities were, because he had shown signs, he'd shown accuracy, he'd done remarkable things up to that point, had played well against Auburn, even though that was probably his least impressive game, but it was against the best defense. Right. And he's only gotten better throughout the course of the season. So yes, the Texas game showed us it was possible, but that was just the beginning to where he's at now and where he eventually got to in playing against the likes of Georgia and some of the other great teams they played in November.
Well, you brought up Clyde Edwards-Helaire. One of the things I wondered about, you mentioned the drive to put the game away against Alabama. Helaire is his check down guy on these longer developing routes. And I guess other guys can play that role, but Helaire is so good at it, of being right where he's supposed to be for the check down.
Well, I think we talk so much about why they went to this offense, and it's very quarterback friendly. You pick a matchup, they have great receivers, you have a really good tight end that can stretch the field vertically and be physical in the run game. But this shift to this style of offense was as much about Clyde Edwards-Helaire as it was about Joe Burrow. Mm-hmm. Joe Burrow could identify the matchups and process things quickly, which allowed him to really take this offense from a really efficient offense to the best offense in America. But Clyde Edwards-Helaire ability to play both between the tackles as a runner, on the perimeter as a runner, and on the perimeter as a pass catcher and a route runner, he might be their best slot receiver. And that's no disrespect to Jefferson, but he is. Who do you cover him with? Perfect. You put him in the game. You got 11 personnel. All right, we'll play nickel. All right, that means he's getting a linebacker. Good luck. All right. It's just he's a matchup nightmare, and they have 2 or 3 guys that are similar to that. So his ability potentially to not be a factor in this one is something that you need to be a little bit cognizant of if you're an LSU fan.
All right, love talking ball with Greg McElroy. They tell us we got to go, so we got to go. Okay, right, thank you, my friends. Good to see you with you.
Sounds good.
All right,
great to have to be here. I thought the guys have done a great job, but the bowl here has been very fun, very much a good time. Houston's a great town. The guys enjoy being here. I have a lot of guys from here, but a lot of guys that aren't. But I've had a good time, a lot of good festivities and things that are going on, and practice very well. Got great venues and got a great bowl game. The Academy Sports Texas Bowl is doing a great job with our kids. They've enjoyed every minute of it, and now we'll get ready to play this game tomorrow. So looking forward to it. Got a great opponent. Oklahoma State's a heck of a football team, top 25 team in the country. Played some great games, played some very spectacular games, very dynamic on offense. The tailback and Hubbard is phenomenal, and they can throw it. Quarterback's back, the offensive line, they're no huddle. Defensively, a lot of problems with the different blitzes and the 3-3 schemes and the 4-down schemes and all that. So. And Mike's done a great job, so we have our hands full. Got to play a great game, and looking forward to playing. I know of it. I know the history. I'm a history buff of college football. I know the old interconference rivalries and the things that meant to the players, and I respect that. And I think it's great for college football. And that's one of the unique things about bowl games now, with all your realignments across the board, where the old, for instance, Nebraska, Oklahoma don't play anymore. Things like that. That happens. Because when you're realigning, people move all the time, but to be able to get back in a bowl game and play that, I think that's awesome. It's a great feeling because it sends you off in the offseason with a great positive note, and you want to win the bowl game and you want to play well. But it's still 2 different football teams. I don't care what that group. This is the last time this group of guys will ever play on a football field together. See, when you put that in perspective, you don't think about that. This exact group of guys, this is the last time they'll ever play together. So that dynamic of that team is right now. You want to end it great for them. It's a great positive experience for your guys learning how to prepare for a bowl game, how to mentally get ready, how to have the preparations, because that's an art. Listen, we're the only sport in America that ends its season and waits a month to play. Think about it. Nothing. Basketball rolls into it. Football. Baseball. We always say this in pro baseball. Remember the teams that win in the divisional series, they'll go 4-0, and the other team will go 7 games. Well, they're setting for 5 days, and they come back and look like they can't hit a ball or pitch a ball or throw a ball. That's the dynamic, and I think there's an art to that. So for your young guys, the ability to understand how to prepare for a bowl game, I think that's very good. It carries on, and it's a great feeling going in the off season that you had success in the games. It's a great for your program. There's no doubt you want to win the game, but as far as going into the next season, that team has to develop its own identity, its own culture, because the guys on the team previously aren't there anymore. There's some guys that are going to change. You bring in a whole new group of guys that you guys have all spoiled and told them how great they are, and they're all superstars in the recruiting world, and they're all going to start as freshmen. So I got to deal with that when they get back. No, I joke about that, but it is. It's a great feeling, but it's still 2 different teams.
All right, night has fallen on Atlanta, Georgia. We are here at the College Football Hall of Fame getting ready for tomorrow's CFP semifinal at the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl between number 1 LSU, and number 4 Oklahoma. Should be fun. All right, welcome back to everybody. As you see, we're at the College Football Hall of Fame. They're going to have some fancy shindig here tonight, as they do most nights here, and it's going to be a whole lot of fun. We are so glad that you have joined us today. Tony Barnhart sitting in for Paul Finebaum, and we're here to 7 o'clock Eastern to take your calls at 855-242-7285. But now we are going to go to Houston, Texas. We just had the great Greg McElroy here. Now we are joined by Alyssa Lang, the man or the person who keeps Greg McElroy out of trouble. Alyssa, how are you?
I'm good. I don't know if you can give me that title as the person that keeps them out of trouble, because I don't know how successful I am at that endeavor, but it was a great year with those guys, as always, on Thinking Out Loud. But each of us now spread across our separate bowl assignments. I was lucky to get the Texas Bowl here in Houston.
Well, let's talk about the Texas Bowl a little bit. We saw some footage earlier today, Alyssa, about Jimbo Fisher saying, yeah, it's good to win this game. It gives you a little momentum going into spring practice and things like that. Well, you tell us, Alyssa, you've watched Texas A&M. What's on the line for them tonight?
Yeah, I think there's certainly a lot of momentum if they can get a win going into the postseason. Just looking back at the kind of year they had a brutal schedule. We know that. We knew that going into the season. We know that looking back at the way their year turned out. And it's pretty impressive what they were able to do, taking on 3 number-1 teams this season: Clemson, LSU, Alabama. I mean, it's incredible what this team had to go up against. So if you can win a game like this one, a huge bowl game with the Academy Sports and Outdoors Texas Bowl against another really good program in Oklahoma State, that not only gives you some momentum going into the postseason, going into the winter months, spring camp, to be able to start fresh, but it also gives you a little bit of help when it comes to recruiting too, because we all know Texas is a gold mine when it comes to high school football. Jimbo Fisher knows that. Texas A&M knows that. Oklahoma State knows that as well, because they are deep here in Texas when it comes to recruiting. So just the opportunity to be able to come into a stadium like this one here in the middle of Houston, knowing that a lot of people are watching this game, it's going to help for your future recruits too.
Now, Alyssa, update us a little bit on the running back situation. Did I read this right, that Texas A&M was down to Isaiah Spiller as their one scholarship running back? Where do they stand right now on that?
Yeah, that's correct. One scholarship running back for Texas A&M. Of course, Jashaun Corbin entering the transfer portal. They've dealt with some injury as well, so they'll look to Isaiah to carry much of the load. Also, Connor Blumrick will probably get some reps when it comes to back as well, which is really interesting when you look at what they're going to be facing in Oklahoma State's offense. They've got a really good running back in Chuba Hubbard, and if you haven't heard of him, well, he leads the FBS in rushing, and it seems like just about every category when it comes to running back in college football. He's a guy who came from Canada to play his college football at Oklahoma State. Extremely talented. You will certainly see him playing on Sunday. So when it comes to each team's rushing attack, it looks a little different. Good news, though, for Texas A&M. On Oklahoma State's side of the ball defensively, they're without 2 of their 3 starting safeties on defense. So if you ask me, I would expect to see Texas A&M try to go deep early in this game.
Well, to go deep early, they're going to have to. Kevin Mond is going to have. Kevin is going to have a big day. Kellen Mond is. Talk us a little bit about Mond's season, because I saw him have brilliant moments. I saw him have difficult moments. What kind of year has it been for Kellen Mond?
Yeah, it's definitely been one of those up and down years, and every time we talk to Jimbo Fisher about his quarterback, he just tells us about how cerebral Kellen Mond is, how smart he is. He'll make his reads. He knows what to do. He's always that cool, calm, and collected guy. Now, he hasn't had the stats against the really good teams that they've faced this year, but you also have to take into account how many really good teams they faced this year. It's not easy to go from number 1 to number 1 to number 1 week to week to week without feeling a little beat up, if you will. So this is an A&M team that certainly has a lot to prove. They've been making progress year after year. Kellen Mond has certainly made progress as well. I believe he and Johnny Manziel now are the only Texas A&M quarterbacks to throw for over 7,000 yards and rush for over 1,000. So we know he can get it done in the air. We know he can get it done on his feet, but the level of talent they've faced this year hasn't really allowed him to show off, I think, what he might really be capable of. This is a matchup, though, that on paper looks very even. It looks like a very good one. So we might see Mond get out there and really sling it today.
Alyssa, you mentioned Chuba Hubbard earlier. I think he's close to 2,000 yards. Could go over that tonight. When you talk to the Texas A&M defensive coaches, are they willing to commit all the people you got to commit to try to slow this guy down, or are they worried of giving up the big play if they commit too many resources to slow down the run?
Yeah, you know, when you meet with these coaches before each game, you tend to say, hey, what are your keys offensively? What are your keys defensively? Defensively for Texas A&M, it's limit explosive plays and stop Chuba Hubbard. So that box is definitely going to be loaded tonight. They know that he's really their offensive rushing attack. He's the guy that they're going to look to get those short yardage plays and to also bust off and run for 70, 80 yards as we've seen him do all season. The way he's able to find a hole, break tackles is extremely impressive. So you know a lot of their tape study and a lot of their practice has been dedicated to Chuba Hubbard. On the other side of the things, we know Oklahoma State is anticipating that Texas A&M is going to be focused on Chuba Hubbard. They have a couple of running backs behind him, though, that are able to take those carries, that are going to be ready to take some of the pressure off of him as well. So you can't focus on just Chuba, obviously. You might get caught, but Chuba's certainly going to be a huge part of their offensive game plan tonight.
All right, a reminder that the game is on 6:45 p.m. on ESPN. Alyssa Lang, we are so pleased you could join us. Thanks. Have a great call tonight.
Thank you so much.
All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're here to take your calls up to the 7 o'clock hour at 855-242-7825. This is Tony Barnhart.